You woke? Time to get up. Hello and welcome to Thought You're Woke, No Speed Limit Podcast. I'm your host, Alvin. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Um, Gosh, where can I go with this? Let me start here. I do want to correct something I said last week. I was talking about, and excuse me for being graphic here. I was talking about the babies that they claimed that had been beheaded. That story turned out to be false. Now, it was told by several news sources, told by CNN, ABC, CBS, but you have to check your sources. Even they were wrong. And I will go back to my story and say what I will say. I still am going to say what I said. What Hamas did was terrible. It was awful. It was wrong. CNN on a daily basis is trying to sell you how awful that story is so you can respond to the violent response that Israel is now putting on Gaza. Sometimes we have to justify our violent response to violence, but that violent response does not lead to resolution of a problem. I was listening to a show today called Left, Right, and Center. You can probably say there's a million of those shows. I forgot the name of the host of the show, but the one particular hostess on the show decided to ask the question, how was Israel supposed to respond? Every response to anger should always be measured. In other words, it shouldn't be an emotional response to violence. It should be one that's measured. Did Israel have the right to respond to what happened to them? Yes. Did they have the right to defend themselves? Yes. But the question is the response going to be equal to the action that was taken against them? Hamas may have been the enemy, but who becomes the victim because of where Hamas is from and who the people of Hamas are? Most likely Palestinians, more Palestinians will die. They've already talked about it. They said about 2,000 Palestinians have died. 700 of them are children. They just recently bombed a hospital. And they can say whatever they want. According to our president, according to intelligence reports, Hamas launched a rocket and it blew up. Now, here's the thing. They're not saying Hamas. They're saying jihadist missile blew up. Jihadist missile. So I got a question. Why are they saying that instead of calling it Hamas did it? You can look this up. There are stories out there on Al Jazeera and other news sources about this particular source. But it is true that this particular hospital has been hit. So my question is this. In 5 hours, supposedly, 5 hours only, Israeli Defense Force was able to figure out who actually the bomb came from, what the cause of the bomb was. Now, it's funny, when you think about explosive investigations, they usually take days. Maybe they saw a blast video or something and it showed a blast pattern that made them think, well, maybe this was an internal missile. But people are saying the sheer size of it had to be a bomb dropped from an airplane. So I don't know. But I know one thing. People are dying. Rockets are being fired into Israel, and the Israelis are responding with bombing indiscriminately, seems like, buildings in Gaza. And they're telling people to retreat to the south. They're telling them to go to Egypt. My issue is Netanyahu. His plan is this. Just like they occupied the Golan Heights, just like they occupied the West Bank, they're going to occupy Gaza, take that over, and then build their settlements in the place of the people that were there. They're going to downsize Gaza, probably down to 10 square miles instead of 25 square miles, and put 2 million people on top of each other. That's my fear. At the same time, I understand why Israel is responding to this, but is their response equal to that? Does it justify what they are about to do, or what is really what Netanyahu has been wanting to do all along? We can talk about Hamas all day and how Hamas is an awful organization. But it was funny listening to the show because this woman literally attacked those who were saying that we have to think about a long-term solution to this problem. What we haven't solved is this issue of displaced people who have little to no rights at all, who have no money, who are controlled by the other side, who can turn their water off at any time, can cut their food off, can cut their gas off, has told them that they can't build ports on the coastline that they live on. That is the question we have to ask about this. What do we do about these people? One time we had the two-state solution. Apparently that is out the window. But the Israelis don't want these people in their land. They're worried about violence all the time between the two groups. What do we do about these people who are displaced because of things that we have set in motion that we shouldn't have? See, the American thing, we just thought, well, we're here to protect the Israelis. Well, the Israelis are sitting on land that the Palestinian people once lived on as well. We can't act like it's a simple solution. We got to understand that Israel is there forever. The Palestinian people are probably there forever. We've got to find a solution for them to be able to coexist. Palestinian people have to gain some kind of rights. They have to gain the right to have property, the right to prosper, freedom and liberty, those things that we believe in the United States. But see, the problem with the United States is this. We have solved our problems with violence. I can talk about 400 years of slavery. I can talk about 100 years of Jim Crow law, but we have always solved our problems with violence. We have a group of people, Native Americans, who live on reservations on lands who were the natives of this country, the indigenous people, the original inhabitants of this land. We push them to the point where they're on reservations. Most of these reservations are not in the areas that these people originally came from. But we're okay with that. Just imagine if one of those groups on the reservation decided to attack a town or a city nearby because they're angry because they're in this situation on this reservation. They don't. There's limited food, limited opportunity, limited things. What if they did that? The response would be, they're terrorists. They're acting out. But there's a reason behind the reason why they acted out, right? Same with the people in Palestine. It's not me justifying what the Hamas did. I'm giving you the source from where these people come from. So, you're displaced people. So you tell a young man, your parents are living in the village when they once lived in this land where they could farm or were free to open their own businesses and do everything, but the Israelis came in and took it over. Now you have to live in a refugee camp because they've made your people leave their land. And that's the story they're telling these young men. That's the story we hear on a constant basis. Or no, better yet, it's not the story we hear. CNN, ABC, 3340, NBC, Fox News. The only story you're ever going to hear about how the Israelis got bombed, because it's always about here and now. It's not about how we got here. It's not about where we're going. It's about here and now. The violence that happened was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. And yes, Israel has a right to stop the violence. But is it taking this the right way? and how to do it. So we're going to make these people in a worse condition. We're making them flee from their home. We're bombing their buildings. We're growing up another generation of angry young men because there are young men watching their families die, watching their parents suffer, watching their own brothers and sisters suffer, and they know who is dealing this hand of destruction. And you don't think that's going to cause another problem in the future. The young lady today on the Left, Right, and Center said, we dealt with ISIS. We finished off ISIS. But what have we created in the process of destroying ISIS? American soldiers attacked villages in places like Iraq, Syria. Young men saw their families' homes blown up, burned down, destroyed to get ISIS at all costs. And they saw who did it. What future will that cost for us? That's the question we have to ask. That's the question we have to ask. I get on here all the time and talk about this. You know, they always saying, well, progressives, it just seem like all they're doing is pulling for Hamas. I'm not pulling for Hamas. I'm pulling for a solution to the problem. Because violence will not get you the solution to the problem you're hoping that it will get you. I was thinking about this today. World War II only solved one problem. It got rid of the Nazis. But World War II ended up with the Israeli wars and the situation we have now with Israel and Palestine. World War II caused the Cold War. World War II ended up in Korea, Vietnam. War is never the solution to a problem. It may solve somewhat of a problem because it's always about now. Someone said today, Israel has no plans after this is over. What to do after this is over. They have none. Their only plan is crush Hamas. That's all we're going to do. We're going to crush Hamas. We don't care what happens afterwards. There will be people who will not have homes. There will be people who won't have food. They probably won't have a job to go to. There will be people who are lost, who are hurt. And the question is, has our emotional response garnered a response of how to fix the problem so that next year or 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we won't be sitting here having the same emotional response? Think about it. Again, you know, I'm going to do this, and I don't attack shows, but I was also listening to Pod Save America, and I don't know what the young lady's name is. It's an African-American woman got on there and is talking about how she's ashamed of the progressives for what they're saying. But it's nothing wrong with saying something about the situation that the Palestinians are in, despite what happened to the Israelis. That pain is terrible, but it is now. It is temporary. It does not have to last forever. There will be people that are hurt. There will be people who are emotionally damaged. The people who are passed away, who have been killed or murdered, they have no more pain. There will be people who won't be able to return to their homes because of this situation and circumstances. But most people will return home and continue with their lives once this is over. But will that situation be the same for the Palestinians? What life do they have after you finish doing whatever you're about to do? What life do they have? I listened to the president's speech. It was a speech. It said that America's great and we have great resolve. We know how to solve this and do this and that because we're great. Okay. I was kind of disappointed in what he said. To be honest with you, I was highly disappointed. But he did say something. We have to find a solution for Palestine, and that I was not disappointed in. We do. We need to find a solution for those people. They deserve to have a homeland. They deserve to have a place where they can raise their family. They deserve to build mosques where they can worship God as they so please. We cannot be so cruel as to think that the only thing that there is to destroy Hamas and that just fixes everything. Can't be peace that way. So this is something I wanted to add to my video. I was talking about emotional response and being angry. And I got angry when I listened to this young lady and how she was attacking, talking about just the question she was asking. So how are we supposed to respond? How are we responding? I'll tell you one where we're not supposed to respond in America. There's a 6-year-old Palestinian boy here in the United States who has died because a gentleman decided he was going to unleash his anger from what he has heard, what he has seen, what he has been built up in his life from all the information that he has read, all that we have taught him, all that we have put in him. He decided to release his anger on the 6-year-old child and her mother and his mother. So the young man was killed. Palestinian boy. Living here in the United States. Had nothing to do with what was happening with Hamas. They were living here in the United States. I've overheard conversations where people were saying, it doesn't matter, I don't care. They kill babies, so they deserve whatever they get. There was a psychologist that came on and said that we have to justify the violence that we do. See, Hamas was justifying the violence they did by saying their lands were being occupied. That the Israelis were occupying their land, had taken their land and stole it from them. So they were justified by being violent. They are not justified by being violent because of that. There's always a solution to every problem. But instead of deciding to solve it in a peaceful manner, protest works, negotiations work. They decided to commit a terrorist act. Well, in response, Israel is bombing cities, killing more babies, women and children, displacing people, cutting them off from food and water. So the question is, the anger that's begotten, is it justifiable? And the answer to that is no. But we're saying this in our response, and there's been other violence. That's not the only violence. There's violence in Israel itself. Settlers are literally killing Palestinians and vice versa in the occupied territories of the West Bank, getting away with it. Soldiers are doing the same thing. It's not good. Hezbollah is launching rockets right now into Israel. Another response. None of the violence is an answer to anything. So everybody says, what should you do? There should have been a solution to the problem. I constantly talk about this. Solutions to problems. Talking about the Speaker of the House situation. We've gotten to this point because there was a problem that we decided to have no solution for, and because of our anger, we react in a violent way, even if it's not physical. We can talk about January 6th. That was violent. Instead of us figuring out what's causing the stress and how to solve it, we get to a point where we just get angry and violence is the way. Then we try to find a way to justify our violence against each other. Again, 6-year-old boy, New York City. Angry white male, filled with this compassion of hate that's been taught to him over a lifetime. By the information that we pile on, whether it be on the news channel, whether it be in history, he probably has no real understanding or working of the history of what has happened to the people of Palestine or what has happened to the people of Israel in that area as well. All he know is there was the Holocaust during World War II, and these people are over there because maybe the Germans hated them, because here in the United States there's anti-Semitism, and we use that word so loosely, considering that in this country right now there is a lot of anti-Semitic activity among those who say they are not anti-Semitic. And I ain't talking about progressives. I'm talking about liberals and conservatives. See, because we can play the game however you want to play it. Anti-Semitism lives in this country. We heard Kanye West. Trump had Fuentes, a known white supremacist who does not like Jewish people in his house, yet he's talking about we stand with Israel. There's a confused message here in the United States that we have to stop giving, because we keep giving a mixed message that is not truth to who we really are or what we are. It's filled with anger, violence in different ways. When those men were shouting, "You will not replace us" in Charlotte, that comes from this old hot idea that the Jews are trying to replace white people in their lands, their culture around the world. So white supremacy exists among us, and it's telling us that any idea that's different than what we believe, you guys support Israel. Do you really support Israel? You support the idea of Israel. As I heard one journalist say the other day, talking to a British politician, the reason why Israel is so well supported by the West is because they have Western values. Dangerous. Dangerous. To protect that is not what we should protect. Maybe it's because we as Americans have learned that multiculturalism is a growth prospect in this country. That's why progressive people think differently than a lot of other people. I'm not saying I'm a progressive, but that's a progressive thought. Whether you be a black person or brown person, whether you be a white person, indigenous, whether you be Christian, whether you be Jewish, whether you be Muslim, your thoughts, your culture matters. And we live in a world where we get angry when it's not our culture that's up front, our beliefs that are not up front. People don't think like us. They don't do what we want them to do. And we become violent. But then we send out confusing messages. We support Israel, but we're anti-Semitic. We hope for the best for the Palestinians, but we don't like Muslims. This is not the America that Biden speaks of in the speech. We're great. Or should I say, this is actually the America that Biden doesn't talk about in the speech at all. The real America. The confused mess that got that 6-year-old boy killed. That's the problem in America. That angry act against that 6-year-old boy is the culmination of everything that we've been taught, that's ingrained in us, that we believe in. And he wanted a place to lash out. And he felt justified by it because of what happened in Israel. There are those here in the United States who'll be mad exactly at what I said. Again, you're trying to justify your violence. Don't justify your violence because you can't. Violence does not lead to a solution. It's a temporary fix. You have been listening to Thought You Were Woke No Speed Limit Podcast.